this is a brand new talk. Okay, so normally I do my talk about the tapestry and then I add a little bit on the end about the welcome panels, but I've never really done the sort of the full story of the welcome panel and Galashiels and what's hopefully going to be happening in a few months' time. So bear with me if there are any technical hitches tonight or if I lose my place, just put it down to the gin. Right, let's see if we can do a bit of screen sharing. So first things first, actually, before I share my screen and while I can still see people, does everybody know about the tapestry? Do you want me to give a quick rundown of what the tapestry is, or are we all quite happy that we know about that? I should just say, if you don't know, you should just go and watch part 1 on YouTube, actually. That might be the best way. Pauline, we'll bump the numbers up that way.
It's not on yet, but it will be.
Will be soon. But yeah, the Great Tapestry of Scotland is one of the largest pieces of surface embroidery in the world, and it is coming soon to Galashiels. And this is the story of the welcome panels. So let's see if we can do that. And right, can we see that now?
She's disappeared.
Not yet.
That's it.
Yeah, yes. That come through. Yay, it's worked. Fabulous. Okay, so the Great Tapestry of Scotland consists of 167 individual panels, which are all stitched mainly in crewel work on Scottish linen, and they make up, as I say, one of the largest tapestries in the world. And the welcome panel, oops, let's scoot back a bit. The welcome panel is an extra bit. So it's not really part of the tapestry itself, because the tapestry itself is finished. But the welcome panel is a little addition, which is there to be the first piece of embroidery that visitors to the new centre in Galashiels will see on arrival. And my involvement with the welcome panels started back in June 2018, when I got a bit of a bizarre email saying, we've been running a competition with schools in the Borders to design a new panel for the new building. Would you like to come and judge the final? And I thought, oh, I've got nothing better to do. We'll wander up to council headquarters one morning and we'll see what this is all about. So what in fact had happened was several schools in the Borders had taken part in this competition, and they'd all been invited to come along to council headquarters and present their design for the welcome panel for the Great Tapestry of Scotland Visitor Centre. Fantastic. We had primary school kids right up to high school kids, and they all had to do a proper presentation. They had to stand up and you know, talk about their design and what they'd done and how they'd done it. And there was the judging panel, which consisted of me, Andrew Crummy, who designed the tapestry, Alistair Moffat, who did the historical side of things for the tapestry. I think there was a couple of councillors, didn't actually pay very much attention to them, to be honest. And we were lined up like the judges on Britain's Got Talent. The only thing we didn't have was a big button. And it was, I don't know who was more scared, the kids or me, because I was absolutely terrified of what I was going to have to say. But anyway, so they all did their wee presentation. And do you know what? They were absolutely brilliant. All of them, even the toty wee ones were fantastic. So I've got some of them here just to let you see some of the designs that go up. Yeah, just sums it up. How good is it? So this is Edenside Primary, which is a primary school in Kelso. And unfortunately, the way that I've got the presentations that they all did, but because of the way that it's been fitted into a PowerPoint presentation, I couldn't actually get their full designs to come across. So I've just had to take little bits out from them. But we had quite a few different bits and pieces here. Floors Castle, I think you can probably recognise Floors there, featuring quite heavily. and we had another sort of floors castle, and we think we can work out that's Kelso Abbey there as well. Bits of train track round the edge. You're going to spot this coming in a lot of them. The kids really focused on the train track, and lots of fluffy sheep, which pretty much sums up the Borders, doesn't it? You know, trains, sheep, big houses and abbeys. We'll go with that. Yep, that'll do. Then we had Sprouston. Now Sprouston, just outside Kelso, they did theirs more like a map. So we've got the rivers, and they've got all the place names there as we go along. And then they've picked out different features and buildings and things. And also around the edge of their one, they had all these little boxes. And in each box, they had individual little motifs depicting things like the handball games and shooting and curling and lots of different things like that. So that was a really, they'd taken a big look at the tapestry itself, because a lot of the tapestry panels have that, lots of boxes round the edge with little things added in. So they'd obviously done a bit of research and run with that. Gala Academy, again, I'm sorry, I could only get a little bit of theirs, but we've got the black and white Galashiels colours, and they had some really strong features in their one. Tell you what was really interesting though, for them being the only high school, and obviously the kids being that little bit older, they were all really self-conscious, and they were kind of trying to hide behind their hair, and it was so funny. The primary kids just stood up and gave it laldy, but obviously the high school ones, they just got to that self-conscious age, and they just weren't quite polished in their presentation, which I was quite surprised at. And then we had St Mary's in Melrose, and their one had loads of stuff in it, and as you can see, they'd also done it in like little wee dots, so it was almost like little stitches, the way they'd painted their design, which was really effective. And then we had Glendinning in Galashiels, and they'd actually done some stitching. So if you look at if you can see that the words that they've got on their design there, they're actually stitched, and then they'd put the material onto their design. So they'd actually gone a step further, and they've got sort of lots of textures and things in there as well. And then we had Heriot Fountainhall, so a wee bit further out. And again, we've got the train track, which was really prominent in a lot of them. And again, lots of texture and lots of sheep. So there we are. So that was our finalists. And yeah, how do you pick one? Especially when it's, you know, quite young kids with some of them. So I was quite glad when the decision was reached that what Andrew would actually do is he would take all of their designs, and he would take elements from all of their designs and put them together to create the welcome panel. So this is what he came up with. This is the design. So you can see that where Sprouston, was it Sprouston, had the rivers running through. Mm-hmm. We've got the rivers running through, and we've got through to the sea, to Berwick. And we've got some really prominent border figures, if you like. So we've got the shepherd, we've got the monk, we've got our border reaver, and then we've got our fisher lass with the bondager in hind as well. Okay, so we've got our main figures there, and we've got all our boxes round the edge where we can put lots of little things in. So this was now, we've moved now to the end of January 2019 was the first time that I actually saw this design. And that was the point at which Andrew broke the news to me that it was going to be a little bit bigger than the panels we had done for the tapestry. It's actually 2.5 meters wide and 1.5 meters high. Okay, so it's a fairly substantial piece, this. And to make it easier to work, it was divided into 5. So we had 5 pieces, 1.5 meters wide by 1.5 meters tall, sorry, by 0.5 meter wide, each one with a figure in. And I'm really sorry if you can hear Mayo barking in the background, but I don't know what's set her off, but we'll just quietly ignore her at the moment. So then we took the panels back to the schools to give the kids a chance to do some stitching of their own, but also to put some stitches into the welcome panel. So the first people to put any stitches at all into the welcome panel were the kids who had, in most cases, been involved with a design competition. There were one or two of them where they were either in primary 7 at the time of the competition and they had moved on to high school, or in some of the high school girls had actually finished and were away. So we didn't quite get all of them, but we got a lot of the kids who had been involved. And we had great fun. Oh, it was superb. It was about Easter time, 2019. So what we did was we gave the kids each a piece of linen, the same linen that the tapestry stitched on. And we'd drawn what we thought were fairly obviously rugby ball shapes onto the linen. And the idea was that we would show the kids some basic stitches and they could just do what they wanted. But it was quite close to Easter. Most of them, to be fair, turned into Easter eggs rather than rugby balls. And some of them as well, depending on what dates we were doing, some of them were quite close to Mother's Day. So I think there was quite a few mums got a piece of stitching for their Mother's Day present that year, which was really nice. So here we have Fountain Hall. We had, I think this is actually 2 brothers and 2 sisters, if I remember rightly. And the 2 boys took it very seriously, very, very seriously. And we only had a couple hours with them. So to be fair, you know, they've learned some stitches and actually finished something in a couple of hours. They all did really well. Galashiels Academy, we were with a lot of the girls there were doing sort of higher art and design or fashion, looking to go on to the textiles school in Galashiels. And this was the point at which we realised that actually the teachers were quite keen on getting involved as well and putting some stitches in. And then we went to Glendinning. Now, Glendinning was really interesting. So I'm going to digress a wee bit and tell you a story that's not really got that much to do with the welcome panels. But the lovely lady on the right-hand side there is Annette Hunter. And Annette was one of the original stitchers on the tapestry. And Annette frequently helps me out when I'm running workshops in the Borders. If I've got quite a large class, Annette will often come along and be my right-hand woman and give me a hand there. And Annette was born and brought up in Galashiels, and she actually went to school at Glendinning Primary. And when this was mentioned, when we arrived, the secretary asked a few pertinent questions, scuttled off, and appeared with the roll book and had found Annette's name in it from her very first day of being enrolled at Glendinning Primary. And we flicked back a few pages and found her sister as well. So that's the significance of that one. And that's Annette there holding the roll book with her very own name on it from when she was 5 years old. I'm not going to tell you the year. Embarrass her that way. So here we are. Where have we got to? Oh, Sprowston. Goodness, I think we had half the school at Sprowston because it's such a wee school. So it was most of the kind of bigger ones at Sprowston that we had. And what was really nice as well was to see the kids helping each other. So, you know, they were helping each other thread needles, and they were, you know, oh, why don't you try this colour? Why don't you have a look at that colour? It was lovely to see them working together. And then at St Mary's, we managed to persuade, I think the gentleman on the top was the headmaster, and the guy down below is one of the PE teachers. So we got a few of them to get involved as well. So those were all the schools that had been involved in the original competition. But word had spread, and I even managed to do about 6 months of going into Hoyk High School, which at the time, you're talking about, so it was just before summer 2019, up to about Christmas time. Hoyk High School maybe didn't have the best of reputations, and I'm not sure that I was that keen to go in, but actually I ended up with the loveliest 2 classes of 3rd years who were just starting out on doing textiles and design. as one of their courses, and they all designed and stitched and produced their own piece that would be 10 centimetres square, so the same size as one of the boxes. And they also got involved again with adding stitches onto one of the welcome panels. So it was really super. And I was due to be back last year and again this year, but of course the coronavirus paid to that. So fingers crossed, when things start to get back to normal, we can maybe start getting back into schools again, because it's brilliant to see how the kids really, really enjoyed it. It was just something totally different for them. And a lot of them really got a lot from it. So I'm going to introduce you now to the panels one by one. And number one is Fergus. Now, he's our shepherd. And it got a bit much going, oh, the shepherd, the mill worker, the reaver. So we named them all. Okay, so the shepherd, the group stitch and the shepherd decided that he looked a bit like a Fergus, and they were going to call him Fergus. And he's wrapped in the shepherd's plaid, which is quite a distinctive design. So Veronica in the white top and I had a super day with Janice Embleton, who is a weaver. And Janice has sort of specialises in recreating the shepherd's plaid. So she's got a super wee studio at the bottom of her garden, and we went along and she'd done a couple of sample pieces for us to show that what the design was, and then we were able to work out from there how we could recreate it in embroidery. So that is fingers crossed, as authentic a shepherd's plaid as we could muster. The check is obviously a bit bigger than it normally would be, but that was partly for ease of stitching, and also because this is going to be up on a wall, you're going to be viewing it at a bit of a distance, so it was better to have it a bit chunky and a bit bold there. The dog was altered slightly from Andrew's original drawing, because how many of you remember the stories of Black Bob in the Dandy?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So it turns out that the gentleman who wrote the Black Bob stories was actually born in Hawick and grew up and spent most of his life in Selkirk. And the stories are all set, sort of a lot of them around Ettrick Valley and so on. So the markings on the dog were changed from Andrew's original drawing to turn him into Black Bob, just as a wee nod to the Borders connection there. Now, next up we have Millie, our mill lass. Now, I'm sure I noticed Kathleen was with us tonight. So I'm going to embarrass Kathleen probably now. Kathleen is a member of Bowden Institute in Roxburghshire, and along with Carol Oliver and Kathleen Hughes, they have done the vast majority of the stitching on Millie the Mill Worker, and they have done an incredible job. It's absolutely amazing what they've done. And given that Carol hadn't really done any stitching until she came along to the Evelyn Baxter classes that we were running a couple of years ago, what Carol and Kathleen have produced is just absolutely outstanding. And Millie is stunning. And some of the details, if you have a wee look there, that the mill buildings are all sort of in the skirt of her dress, if you like, and then it moves down, and we've got a golf course with bunkers and greens, and we've got a plough that goes along the bottom, but in the blade of the plough we've got a modern combine and the tractor trailer as well, which is just a lovely wee detail that they've added in completely off their own backs. And it's nice because combine's actually featured in some of the kids' drawings as well, so it was nice to be able to take that in there. Next up we have Bob. So Bob the monk, I don't know if many monks were actually called Bob, but our monk called Bob. Bob Most of the stitching on Bob has been done by Kirsty Robb from McKirsten and Barbara Whitelaw from Langshaw Institutes, again in Roxburghshire. They just decided they wanted a nice short name so that they could discuss who was having Bob, when, and what they were doing to him. So Bob he became. If you look on the photo on the left-hand side, you'll see that he's got quite a nice wee string vest. There was a kind of weird line had been drawn along his neck, and then this sort of plain V bit before his habit. So Barbara decided that he could be doing with a string vest just to keep him warm. So he's got his thimmet on there. And for any of you who are embroiderers, if you look closely, I've put a wee close up there of his belt, which is completely made up of bullion knots raised over, and it stands proud. It's absolutely beautiful. It's an amazing piece of stitching. And the stained glass window at the bottom of his habit is done in satin embroidery threads to give it that sheen. And it really, when you see the whole thing together, it makes such a beautiful centerpiece, and it really does just stand out and shine beautifully. And then we have Robbie. Oh, Robbie's only got one photo. Oh dear. Can you tell I did this afternoon in between taking photos at my work? Sorry, Robbie, I'll have to get more photos. So Robbie the Reaver, you'll see a bit more of him later, it's okay. Robbie the Reaver was stitched by the Stow Stitchers, the Stitchers of Stow, who did a panel for the tapestry. And they were fabulous, because honestly, at the beginning, they were like, oh, Susie, well, do you know, we'll do a bit. We'll do a bit. We'll get it started for you. But we're not really we don't really want to we're not going to do a whole thing again. No. They did. I knew fine they would do it. And Robbie's fabulous. You'll see later, hopefully I've got a photo later on, he's got a cloak that comes down, and in the inside of the cloak, what they've done, you can see it just round his collar there. They've stitched, it's all the Reaver surnames. So you've got your Turnbulls and your Armstrongs and your Pringles, they're all there. They're all within the Reaver. And when you stand back, it just looks like a nice wee patron on the inside of his cloak. But when you get up close, you can read each one. It's really, really stunning. And then last but not least, we have Ina, or Ina. So Ina is the Fisher Lass. And a lot of Ina was stitched by Retweed, which is a social enterprise based in Eyemouth. And I was really keen to try and make sure that we did cover as much of the borders as we could, although, yeah, that kind of went astray, but I'll tell you more about that in a minute. But it was really good to get the Fisher Lass panel across to Eyemouth so that a lot of the stitching on her could be done there. And for those of you who are maybe not quite so familiar with coastal communities, quite often daughters were named after their fathers. So if your dad was William, you would have been Wilhelmina. And if your father was James, you would have been Jamesina. But you generally would be known as Ina or Ina, is how it would be shortened. So we decided that that was quite an appropriate name to give our Fisher Lass. So she's Ina. And again, if you look at the bottom of the skirt there, there's so much detail in there. So we've got the bondager in hind, and then we've got sheep, and we've got stalks of wheat, and we've got stuff growing in the fields. There's just an awful lot of detail in there to have a look at. So as well as having the main figures stitched by groups of stitchers, we were keen to get as many people as possible to get involved. And even if it was just a case of adding one stitch, we wanted people to be part of the process and be part of the project and add their own stitch to the tapestry. So we started off on a little tour, and hopefully there's maybe a couple of familiar faces. 2 seconds, I'm just going to shut the door, because you're just being very noisy. Sorry about that. Bruce has been away for literally one night, and she's all excited because he's back home today. Right, so where were we? Our tour, yes, our little tour. Okay, so some familiar faces. Oh, there's Samira, look at that. There's surprise, surprise, she pops up everywhere. And some of you will recognise Wilma from St Boswell's. And we also have Kathy Wilkie, who would be, is Kathy?
Stitcher.
Stitcher.
Yeah. So yeah, that was at the Heaton Library Cafe. Can I just tell you folks, if you're ever in Heaton, when the library bus comes to the village, nip into the hall. They have the most amazing cafe with soup and scones and biscuits and cakes and everything. It's brilliant. And the place is absolutely heaving. Anyway, by the by. So this was just us taking it out and about. We would hear about events and think, oh, the library cafe, let's go along to that. Wilma and Samira, that was at the Wool Festival in Eyemouth. So that was lovely. We had a super day there. And the bottom right-hand one, when I was doing my Evelyn Baxter classes, if I had a panel available, I would always take it with me. So there's an awful lot of the rural Evelyn Baxter scholars, folk who managed to come along, got the opportunity to put stitches in, and I've got all their names in a book as well. We've even got a professor. So the gentleman in the bottom left, that's one of my old school pals, and he's much, much cleverer than me, and he's like a proper professor in Aberdeen. So I even managed to get him to put some stitches in. And top left, we were invited to Marchmont House. So this was February 2020. God, it feels like so much longer ago than that. And they were having a big textiles day, so we were invited along. And again, lots of the speakers and the presenters and folk who'd come along for the day all got the chance to add in stitches. And that's Andrew Crummy on the left, and with him is Sandy Maxwell Forbes, who is the director of the new centre in Galashiels. And Sandy she was just kind of finding her feet at this point, and I'm not quite sure if she knew quite what to make of us all, but we've got her whipped into shape now. It's okay. So the Marchmont event was going to kick off a tour, and we had an entire tour planned for 2020 of the borders. We were going to be at Flores Castle. We were going to be at Abbotsford. We were going to care homes. We were going to brownie packs. We were going to guide meetings. We were going to go and see the BBs. I was going to be around all the rurals. You were going to be sick of the sight of me by the end of last year. We had a huge plan mapped out. We were going to a massive international tourism expo in Aberdeen, where all the big tour companies come to do their itineraries for the next year and get ideas for new places to go. And we were going to be there, and we were going to give them the opportunity to add stitches, watch a stitcher in motion, promote the centre. And of course, it all came crashing down. And it was just, it was pretty devastating, because we had so many plans. We had 1,000 people stitched on the original tapestry, and our goal last year was to get 1,000 people to add a stitch to the welcome panel. Now, at the last count, I was at about 700 odd, and that was without the tour. So we would have done it. We would have easily got our 1,000 if we'd been able to go ahead. It also put the brakes on stitching the panels a little bit as well, because all of a sudden, we were worried about passing the panel back and forth between stitchers. Could we do it? Were we allowed? Was it safe? We just didn't know. We sort of consulted a few experts, and the decision was that the best way to deal with it would be, if possible, if you were getting a panel for the first time and it had been in someone else's house, if it was nice weather, hang it out on the washing line and let it get fresh air and sunlight, which would help. Some folk took to just hanging it over the dining room table, leaving it for 72 hours. You can see here we had contactless deliveries. So folk would go along and just leave it outside someone's door and scuttle off again. But it really did, it totally changed the whole dynamic of the project, because all of a sudden it had gone from being a wonderful group effort with loads and loads of people involved to we were back to just individual stitchers working away in their own homes. And it was a little bit sad. I mean, it still has come out with glorious results, but it was just that wee bit disappointing that we just couldn't involve as many people as we really wanted to. But as restrictions have lifted, we have managed to sneak in a few extra ones. And about a month or so ago, I nipped up to Galashiels and collared a few of the builders. And it was really funny because as soon as word got out that we were in the site office and that anyone that wanted to could come along and add a stitch, we had all these big blokes in their hard hats and high vis and great big thumpy boots coming in and can I do a bit? Can I do a bit? And one lad that sticks out in my mind was the one who said, I've been on this project from day one. I've been here since the very first day and I'm putting a stitch in. And it was just lovely to see. So that was the last time we had, well, that was supposed to be the last time we had any public stitching until Sharon came along last Saturday for 10 minutes and stayed for about 4 hours, but that's by the by. So of course, once the panels are stitched, anybody who was unfortunate enough to be with us last week as well will remember I spoke about how we had to stretch the panels and get them back to their right length and get them ready for hanging. So yet again, of course, we had to make frames because if you're going to stretch something that's 1.5 meters long and 0.5 meter wide, you know, you're going to need something to put it on. So Kirsty's husband came to the rescue and built us a fabulous frame. And we added the obligatory carpet gripper and popped off to the Wonky Giraffe in Kelso, where Louise has very kindly been giving us use of one of her units that she has there. And this is where we've been doing the stretching and the blocking. So Kirsty, as you can see in the top right-hand photograph there, yep, she fell victim to the carpet gripper and cut her finger. And we were swiftly in with a plaster and bandaged it up. And about half an hour later, Louise said to her, do you realise the top of your finger's going blue and perhaps we should release the pressure on that plaster a little bit? So we nearly had an amputation as well. So once they're stretched, we have to wet them. And we learned from the main tapestry that sometimes some of the colours would run. So I'm busy spraying, and that's why Kirsty is on hand with the colour catcher ready just in case. But actually we'd nothing. Out of the 5 panels, absolutely no bleeding, no running, nothing at all. We're so relieved. So if anybody uses colour catchers, I've got a whole box of them at home now and I'm never going to use them. So just let me know. Because if I don't, they're going to end up as a raffle prize someday at the rural. Then it came to the job of joining them. And this gave me sleepless nights because those of you that know me will know that I do not do sewing machines. I can't thread a sewing machine. I just really don't understand them at all. And I just couldn't understand how we were going to get these huge panels to match up and the rivers to match up and the lines of the boxes to match up and the wording on the, I was coming out in a cold sweat. So bring on Barbara, who came along, drew some lines, did a little bit of tacking, did some pinning, went through to the other room, went vroom through the machine, and bingo, we had 2 panels joined. I mean, literally like that. It was absolutely amazing to watch her do it. And over the course of about a fortnight, we stretched and joined all 5 of the panels. And then last Saturday, nothing like being up against a deadline, but last Saturday, we were putting the finishing touches on. So here we have Louise and Sharon doing the stitching where the rivers and things had to join up. What we said to the stitchers was, don't go right to the edge of your panel, just stop a wee bit short. And then that way, if they don't quite marry up, we can fudge it over the joins. So that's what's happening here. Not much fudging though, because most of the lines did match up. And that all had to be done by Monday, because on Monday just gone, I had to take the joined up panels up to Galashiels for them to be photographed, because in the end what we'll have to do is we will hem them and we will back them ready for hanging. But once they're hemmed, there's only about half an inch at the most between the edge of the stitching and the edge of the material. And in such a big piece, it's going to be impossible for that line to be very crisp and even all the way along. So we'd suggested to the photographer that it might be best to take the photograph before they were hemmed, so that there's more linen around the edge, and then he can crop it and make it look nice and neat. So midnight on Sunday, I was still stitching, and I was up again at 6 o'clock on Monday morning, and the very last stitch on the very last panel went in at 11:15 on Monday morning, and they were delivered for 1:30. I work better with a deadline. So now this is a world exclusive, folks.
Excuse me.
Okay, because not many people have seen all 5 of them together. So here goes. That's
Wow.
what they look like at the moment. Okay.
Wow.
Oh,
So as you can see, Phil has had to climb a ladder to be able to get a clear shot of them. Okay. And this is actually in what will be the admin office for the new building, because it's clean and it's carpeted, but there's no furniture in it. It was the only room big enough that we could lay them out on. I think it's turned out quite well.
beautiful.
Quite well.
Beautiful.
There are 76 boxes round the edge, and each one of those small boxes depicts a person or a place or an activity or something related to the borders. We've deliberately lifted some of the kids' images directly and put them on. So they're not all beautifully drawn, wonderfully executed, pieces of design. There are kids' drawings in there. There are ones that have been drawn by stitchers' husbands. There are ones that have been drawn by stitchers themselves. There are ones that have been drawn by people who, wanted to be involved, but, didn't feel they could stitch on it. All the rivers have joined up pretty much where they were supposed to join up. There's one extra bit, but if anyone ever spots it, I'll be impressed. The hills all joined up. The letters along the bottom all joined up. It really has been quite amazing to see it all. And we had some special squares. I wonder if I can probably be able to pick them out. The one on the very bottom right, if you can make that out, it's got a rainbow in it. And it's actually a house, and there's a wee thistle, and there's a pair of hands washing, there's the soap suds, and then there's a little figure wearing a mask. So we were approached by a teacher from Langley Primary, and she actually approached us in a personal capacity. She wanted to, was there still time to stitch? And at this point, restrictions were still, it was about Christmas time, restrictions were still quite heavy. We really don't know, we'd love you to stitch, but it's the logistics of getting a panel to you and getting it to you safely. So she offered to draw some boxes for us, which was great. And then we got chatting about the fact that she was a teacher and could we get the kids involved? So lo and behold, we had another schools competition, and Langley Primary had a competition, but they were set it as part of their homework when they were homeschooling. They were given a design brief, 10 centimetres square. They had to depict Scotland in lockdown. They were told that it had to be nice, bright colours. It had to be simple shapes. It couldn't be anything too detailed for stitching. And again, they came up with 3 winners. And then what we did was we took elements from each of the 3 and put them into that square. So that it's a lovely, special little square there that the kids have put together. And there are a few other references to the pandemic across the squares, but hopefully there's ones in there that folk will recognise instantly, and there's other ones that might make you scratch your head a wee bit, but then you'll figure out what they are in due course. So my next job is now to write the narrative for each of the squares explaining what they are, so that anybody will be able to work out once they go to the centre. And yeah, that's it. Coming soon to Galashiels. You know, it's even worse than last week because I know a little bit more than I did last week, and I still can't tell you anything. I'm confidently going for summer. Watch this space. And the welcome panel will be situated. You come up. Is it Channel Street? That's the pedestrianised street. Is that, am I right saying that? Yeah, is that Channel Street? So when you come up Channel Street and you pass the post office building, the entrance is just there. And you go in and the welcome panel's going to be on the wall on your right-hand side as you go in. Because it's quite close to the door, it is actually going to be recessed into an alcove and behind glass, just purely because it's going to be so close to the door and the draft and so on. But yeah, it's going to be there, and it will be the first piece of stitching that visitors to the building see. So it's really something quite special, and it's been amazing to be part of it. I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to do with my time now that it's pretty much done. I'll be getting it back on Friday, and then I think hopefully the following weekend, because Louise is moving premises this weekend, so hopefully the following weekend we'll put the backing on it, we'll hem it, and it will be all ready to hang. So I just hope that it fits the alcove, and but I won't worry about that neither of the time. So there you go, folks. I will stop sharing that now, hopefully. There we go. We're back. Yay! Yes. So if anyone's got any more questions other than when does it open, because our lips are sealed on that one. Along with how much is it going to be to get in? No, I don't know that one either.
Well, it's apologies for being late in, Susie, but your talk's been wonderful, and what excellent work that's and hours that's gone into that. It looks amazing.
Absolutely, hours and hours. We haven't counted.
Yeah,
I dread to think.
Well, yeah, exactly. But no,
I have kept a note of my mileage actually, and at some point I must tot up my mileage as to just how many miles I've done around the borders, dropping off and picking up panels and delivering wool and stuff. But yeah,
and lots of different, as you say, textures into it.
Yeah, loads of different textures, loads of different styles of stitching, and lots of folk involved as well, which was good.
Yeah. And I think it's encouraging that, you know, there you have Burley builders wanting to come in and put a stitch in, you know, so it's reached out to lots of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think just to meet you, Susie, yeah?
Well, you know, I might have had on a lower cut top that day. I look quite good in high vis and a hard hat, actually, I'll have you know. But yeah, there we go.
Brilliant.
Does anybody get any questions for Susie?
Brilliant.
I was wondering if
very good.
Do you know is the tapestry must be insured? Do you know how much it's insured for?
I don't actually. Yeah, good question. Because I don't know how you would value it, how you would even start to value it.
I don't know how you would. No.
Well, you'd value it as part of the building, probably the contents of the building and the income it might bring to that building.
That's maybe because if you tried to do it by, you know, like hours spent on it or something like that, it would be awful. Yeah. I try not to think about things like that, Pauline, because honestly, if you'd seen me, I've got a wee car at the minute. I'm running around in my stepson's little Mazda at the moment, and trying to get this panel rolled up to fit into the car. And it was a case of having to open the boot and open a door and kind of slide it in and jam it into a corner and then shut the door quickly before it fell out again. So yeah, it's you try not to think about the fact that you've got something fairly precious when you're humping about the countryside like that.
Priceless.
It is a one-off as well. You could never make it Like you could
No.
copy it, but it would never be exactly the same again.
Yeah, well, that's what happened, Grace, with the
Yeah.
panel out of the main tapestry that got stolen.
Right.
Although the new one that they've stitched is very, very similar, it's never going to be the same.
No.
No.
No way.
No.
But then that's part of the
Shame.
joy of it.
Could I ask Susie a question?
Yeah, hi Helen.
Hi. The panel, the Fisher girl, Ina. What's the significance of the two heads, the boy and the girl, coming out of the dress?
Right, now this is going to test me, because I didn't know about this until I came to the Borders. I think it's very much a border thing. So anybody can jump in and correct me if I get this wrong. But the lady is a bondager and the gentleman is the hind. So he would be brought on to work the land by the farmer or the fee or whoever, but he would be contracted to have this bondager woman with him, not necessarily his wife. Or, you know, sometimes it might have been, but not necessarily the wife. And the good thing about being a bondager was, although you had to work really hard, you got paid up front. So she effectively at the start of the contract had more money than him. And I think they believe that her fee was like a flat fee that she got regardless, whereas he might be paid depended on productivity and so on. So they did tend to be quite well dressed and have a bit of money, and that's why she's got the flowers on her hat, because they would have been quite decorated. We had a really, really super lady, and I can't remember her name, and I'm sure some of the Roxburgh ladies will know. She's written books and everything about the bondagers, and she came to Eyemouth to tell us all about them, and she was absolutely fascinating. But if you,
was that the woman that came to Towford and did talk about the Kale Valley? I can't remember her name.
I can't. I know. If you said it, I might remember it.
Can't remember her name either.
The only thing is, just Helen, be very careful if you decide to Google bondagers to find out more about them, because you could you could end up on some slightly dodgy sites.
Thank you very much, Susie, and it's been fascinating, and the work is just beautiful, lovely.
Yeah, are you going to come up and see it, Helen?
Well, I hope so. Yes, absolutely. I was in Scotland last week, but cycling. We cycled from Helensburgh over to Dunbar on the John Muir Way. Once it's lifted, yes, I'd love to, come back up to Galashiels and have a look. Beautiful.
Brilliant, fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody got anything else to ask?
Everybody's gone really quiet tonight.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think that's us.
I think you've covered every point, Susie, very well.
Yeah,
You have.
yeah. I'd just like to say, Susie, that it's been really, really interesting. Both of your talks. Thoroughly enjoyed them. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's good. It's easy to talk about something when you've been involved in it so much, and I know it has been a huge part of my life. So yeah, there you go. See, did we see something else now? Oh yeah,
It'll be a hot spot for rural trips next year.
It will, yeah.
Susie, have you been asked to talk at anything else, like the schools, or to promote?
Not at the moment. I think the big issue that we have just now is just because of restrictions still being in place. So fingers crossed. I mean, I'll go and talk anywhere. As you can tell, I'm very shy and retiring.
Yes.
I mean, I had a lot of talks lined up last year for sort of embroidery groups, and at least 2 of them have now come back and confirmed that they're just moving their dates on a year. So I've got one down about Sunderland October time, and so yeah, I mean, I will travel. I'll go anywhere. Lovely.
Mm.
I have to say I really enjoyed my Saturday.
Yes, very good.
10
Honestly,
minutes. And it was more
she
than
came in for
4
10
hours.
minutes to get her book signed.
Did you
Well,
have some of the vodka, Sharon?
No.
No, we didn't need the vodka at the weekend. And very little spitting as well, I have to say. We were relatively blood free. Yeah, we've done well. It's yeah, most of them were. I think I said.
I saw Susie. There's another lady doing a talk tonight. Sorry, I think it's Pentlands WI are having a similar talk to yours. It's about bringing the tapestry to Gala. I can't remember the lady's name that's doing it.
It's Dory Wilkie. It'll be. I'm sure it'll be Dory.
Yes, that's right.
She was the stitch coordinator for the main tapestry, and Dory's daughter Katrina, I think, is president at Pentlands. So that's the
All right, I saw it this afternoon being advertised.
There you go.
So have you also contributed, Susie, in a big way to the main tapestry?
Yeah, I did a couple of panels for the main tapestry, and I still do quite a lot to do with it.
Sorry?
All voluntary. I should point out, I realised I didn't say that last week, and I maybe didn't make that clear enough, that it's all voluntary. I mean, get your mileage covered and things, but other than that, it's not a paid job at all. Just done for fun. Yeah, you'll have to watch last week's talk, Helen, when it comes up on YouTube.
Yeah.
You can catch up with the first part of the story.
Get all the information there. Yeah.
Yeah. And for those children that have done those things, that's a bit of history for them.
It is a bit, and we tried really hard. In fact, I've got my wee book here that I need to go through. When we were out and about and we were getting people to just add a stitch, we were getting them to write down their name and where they were from.
Yeah.
And we've got that recorded under each event that we went to. Basically, because we know what happens. It always happens at exhibitions. Someone will come up to you if you're volunteering at an exhibition and say, my granny did a bit of this, and they want to know, what did they stitch? Where did they stitch? So hopefully we'll have a database up and running that will have everybody's names and where they're from and at what point they added a stitch to the welcome panel, so that in years to come, folk can come back and look up. That's the idea.
How many do you think overall have contributed to it? Have you got an idea?
I'm hoping we might be at about 800.
Wow.
I'm still waiting for some of the individual groups. Claire took the panels to things like guides and BBs when we could. And I'm still waiting for sort of some of their names and numbers to come through. So maybe about 800. I don't think we'll make the 1,000.
No, that's brilliant though. Still,
but maybe what I'll do,
big effort.
I'll just get Anne Reid to give me the members list for Roxburgh Shire, and we'll add everybody's name to it.
Well, you get over your 1,000 if you did that.
There we go. We don't need to tell anybody else.
No.
I've joined in late tonight because, again, I've not managed to get here quick enough. Happened to the Scotland's diaspora. I'm sorry if you've asked this question, been asked this already or covered it. You know how there was another lot of tapestries starting just as COVID started. Are they ongoing or have they all been finished?
When COVID started?
Well, just before it, I think we were in East Lothian. We're up with the motor van in East Lothian.
The diaspora one, Susie, you talked about.
We were I'm trying to remember the name of the place, Preston Pans, where they've got a house, and they were busy setting up the tapestries for the Scottish diaspora.
Yeah, so the diaspora tapestry was finished quite a while ago. It was done after the Great Tapestry of Scotland. Now, I'm sure I saw that they have got a new exhibition lined up.
Yes, the diaspora is
it coming in Brewry?
It's at the Verdant Works in Dundee.
That's it.
From now until September. It's in 2 parts. Part 1, and then there's like 2 days it doesn't exist, and then it goes to the end of September.
Yeah, that's right.
So I must have a trip down and see it.
Aye, because it's super if you've not seen it before. So the diaspora panels are 1/2 metre square, and they tell the story of the Scots abroad. And a lot of them, if it's a panel that is about New Zealand or India or whatever, where possible, it was stitched in that country and then sent back. So that's the diaspora one. I'm wondering though, Wilma, if the one that you're thinking about as well, that was being started or being worked on just at the start of lockdown and everything, was Andrew's cancer tapestry.
No, I don't know. It was just that we were in a gallery, an artist who had their own gallery, just out North Berwick, and his wife was going just beyond Tantallon Castle, and his wife was away to Preston Pans because she was working, setting up the frames or whatever. At that time.
So that would have been the diaspora going on display.
Right.
Because it's been doing the rounds since about 2014, 15. In fact, I can tell you, remember when there was the attacks at Westminster Bridge and the policeman died outside Parliament?
I am just on the Zoom call.
Just 2 years ago. The diaspora tapestry was being set up in Westminster Hall at that time because the volunteers setting it up were put into lockdown and stuck in the hall until it was safe for them to get out. So it's been finished and been touring for a number of years. But there was, Andrew did a series of panels because he had throat cancer a couple of years ago. And as a result of that and the treatment that he got and everything, he's done a few panels which are known as the cancer tapestry. So they might well have been getting worked on at that kind of time as well, Wilma, because they just got finished, I think.
Yeah, because we were well aware of must have been in the, is it Preston Pans house they use or something?
Mackenzie House.
Mackenzie House, I think, yeah, because there was a cafe there where they did lovely cakes.
Super Cafe, yep, that's another one they did.
Because they were working downstairs then when we were in that cafe. So that, it could be.
I think it would probably been the cancer panels that they would have been working on.
Right.
Yeah. Andrew's studios at Mackenzie House as well. It's just next door to Mackenzie House. So that's where his studio is. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's nice to visit, folks. If you're in East Lothian, go to Mackenzie House. Super, super cafe, lovely grounds, and lots of different makers and things in there.
And is the Scottish Diaspora one, is that going to be touring forever, or is that also coming down to Gala? Or?
I don't know, Samira. There's really not room for it in Gala, because the whole of the upstairs of Gala is taken up with the Great Tapestry. There is a small travelling exhibition room that you could get a bit of the diaspora in, but it wouldn't even be half of it. It's quite big, but there may well be bits of it might come at different times. But as Pat says, if there's half of it, because they did the same with the Great Tapestry of Scotland at the Verdant Works. It was there twice, and it was half of the panels one time and then half of the panels the next time. So quite often they do that. But yeah, it's worth seeing. If you just if you Google diaspora tapestry, you'll get the information about it, and they've got quite a lot of the panels on the website.
Thank you.
Oh, I've got the book as well if you want to look.
I was just wondering if it was at all related, or like I know they were not related.
Yeah,
in the
it's all
making,
it's all the same
but whether,
designer.
yeah,
Yeah, all the same designer. That's the link that runs through them all. It's
Mhm.
all Andrew Crummie's designs. Yeah.
fascinating. That was great.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, dear.
Any other questions, ladies?
That's us. We've stunned them into silence tonight. Wilma, did you arrive too late to see your photo?
Yes,
All right.
my photo. What's my photo doing anyway?
Ah.
No, I'm still looking after Mum, so it's taken a lot of time.
All right. No, it was just you and Samira stitching at Eyemouth.
That was good fun.
That was
good
yeah.
fun.
Oh well, thank you very much, folks. I'm really glad that you gave up a nice sunny evening to come and listen.
Oh, lovely.
Indeed.
I didn't. I got the talk and the sun. That's great.
You get the talk and the sun.
Yeah.
Well,
Hey.
just if no one's got anything else to say, just Susie, thank you so much for a very informative talk. And as I say, it's tremendous and beautiful work that everyone has done. And I'm sure there's going to be when we can and get there, and once it's announced when it's open, there'll be a lot of people flocking to Galashiels to see it in person, which will be really good for the borders.
Yeah. Aye, don't worry, I'll announce it. You'll not miss it.
You won't miss it, right?
As soon as I'm allowed.
We'll be first to know.
Oh, you
We'll
will
all be first to know.
We'll do a Roxburghshire exclusive.
So thank you very much again.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies, for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank
No,
you
you're
too.
very welcome. It's nice to see people from all over. It's lovely. It's nice that you all join in. So yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Susie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Good night, ladies. Yeah.
Good night.
Thank you very much for coming. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. For your effort too. Thank you.
Oh.